My name is Stephanie Benedetto, and I'm the Queen of Raw. Every single year, $120 billion with a B worth of unused textiles just sit in warehouses collecting dust or being burned or sent to landfill. And when you think about all this waste, it's actually occurring now more than ever. All because of closed stores, canceled orders, missed seasons and collections all around the world. And this problem of waste and unused textiles, it's just growing and growing. And you might think that we were just talking about scraps off a cutting room floor, right? But for some of the enterprise customers that we work with, this fabric waste is so big, it actually represents up to 15% of their bottom line in just 1 year. And at that volume, all this waste isn't just environmentally irresponsible, it's a CFO issue. And clearly all that wasted fabric is destroying businesses' pockets, but it's also destroying your drinking water, right? By many accounts, the textile industry is the second biggest polluter in the world of clean water globally, and it sits behind oil and agriculture, which of course it also contributes to and uses in its production. To put it into terms that kind of may make sense for us as individuals, think of your favorite cotton t-shirt, right? One t-shirt takes an average 700 gallons of water to produce it and another 700 gallons of water to wash it in its lifetime. And that's just one shirt. Over 2 billion shirts are sold around the world every single year. And, when you think about that, you can just see how massive of a problem this is becoming. And I don't like to harp too much on the scary statistics, but I will leave you with one figure. According to the World Wildlife Fund, among others, if we continue at the current pace of textile production, by 2025, 2/3 of the entire world's population will face shortages of fresh water and be exposed to hazardous chemicals from textile production alone. So we're not talking about 100 years from now. We're not talking about 50 years from now. We're not even talking about 10 years from now. We're talking about today, and we're talking about on our shores. And of course, all this damage to our water is happening because of the dyeing, the rinsing, the treatment, the production of these textiles. And that's all what we are here as part of the Microfiber Innovation Challenge to address together. I know about this problem because my family has actually been in the fashion and textiles industry for over 100 years. In 1896, my great-grandfather came over on a ship from Austria. He landed at Ellis Island, and he actually settled into the Lower East Side of New York. And he was an immigrant chasing the American dream, and he had to make a living for his family. So what did he do? He found materials and supplies nearby, old fabrics and furs and things that immigrants had brought over on the ships with them, but they weren't using anymore. And he would repurpose them by hand with minimal waste and minimal toxins because his bottom dollar depended on it. And he sold the most beautiful fashion garments as finished goods to local customers. And it was an incredibly profitable, successful business. Many of his fur coats I still wear today, over 100 years later. Now, he didn't talk about it when I grew up hearing the stories from him of the old school way of doing business. He didn't talk about it in terms of sustainability. At the end of the day, that's very much what it was. It made sense for people, for planet, but also for profit. And of course, today's supply chains are much more complicated, right? Hundreds of steps across the globe, metric tons of water, chemical, crops, and oil all used in the process. But our vision with Queen of Raw and with some of the ideas that you may be working on can be, how can we use technology and innovations in textiles to get back to the way my great-grandfather did business, which, as I said, made sense for people, for planet, but also for profit. There's a question as you're thinking about the innovations that you're building around, well, when I make this innovation, who's going to buy it? Who's going to use it? Are the brands and the retailers and the industries that are using textiles, do they actually care? Well, what we've seen going on in the world today, now more than ever, right, is that brands across industries and around the world are signing commitments to reduce their waste and to be more sustainable by 2030. And what's really interesting is that they're also going to face exposure to significant liability with all the recent changes in the laws, including recycling laws, right? There's tariffs, trade wars, EPR policies, impacts of travel and coronavirus, if they don't adopt the solutions that you are building. So I highly recommend, obviously, keep that in mind as you're thinking about the innovations, because it's critical and it matters, and you will have great enterprise customers coming to you for these kinds of solutions in the future, now more than ever. For those of you who may still be doubting whether any of these kinds of innovations are going to matter to the end consumers, take a look at the latest McKinsey report. It shows that what end consumers, especially the millennials and the Gen Zs, really do care about is sustainability, and they're acting with their dollars. And when they say sustainability, they want things that make sense for people and planet. It's environmental sustainability. It's issues of workforce labor and conditions of people. And so all of what the ideas that you are building are going to help deliver goods to these end consumers that are more responsible and meet the present need and demand. So what you're doing and building matters. It matters to the companies, and it matters to your end consumers. You know, it's interesting to look back on 08 and 09 when I was on Wall Street as a corporate attorney and the market crashed. And it was a very dark period. Talk about, right, the height of waste and greed and excess and pain and depression for some people. And you look around the world at what's going on today, and in many ways, it's very similar. Well, I took that time period as my opportunity to go out on my own and build a business and go change the world. And so I hope for those of you working on these incredible innovations out there, you take what's going on in the world today as an opportunity to build for the future of what we want and what we need in order to be better to people, planet, and profit. I'm doing what I'm doing for my 5-year-old son and my newborn. I want them to have clean water to drink, clothes that aren't toxic to wear, and a planet to live on. And I know that together we can and will change the world.